PHNICITY, or disability and discipline-related actions and/or special education placement produced by the Superintendent's Educational Opportunities Advisory Council for Dwight D. Jones, Superintendent of Schools, Clark County School District, February 5, 2013, revised. February 20, 2013, page 1 of 22. Board of School Trustees President Carolyn Edwards, District F, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals F. Vice President Lorraine Alderman, District D, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals D. Clerk Deanna L. Wright, District A, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals A. Member Chris Garvey, District B, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals B. Member Dr. Lindsay Young, District C, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals C. Member Patrice 2, District E, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals E. Member Aaron E. Kramer, District G, http://ccsd.net/trustees/trustee-detail.php question district equals G. Board of Trustees, 5100 West Sahara Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada 89146, http://ccsd.net/trustees/ The Clark County Board of School Trustees is a dedicated group of community leaders who are elected to overlapping 4-year terms and represent a specific geographic region of Clark County. Although each trustee represents a different region, they are dedicated to ensuring the success of every student in the district through clear, concise direction to the superintendent. Vision statement: all students will graduate from high school having the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values necessary to achieve academically, prosper economically, and contribute in a diverse global society. Page 2 of 22. Policies which require out-of-school suspension or expulsion for certain inappropriate behaviors have become the go-to disciplinary approach in many schools, but research suggests some downsides. Punishments that force students out of school disproportionately affect Black, Latino, and male students and those with disabilities. Education Week, October 13th and November 7th, 2012, page 3 of 22. I Preface 2. Executive Summary 3. Charge and Success Criteria IV. Membership, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 7, page 8, page 10, page 12, page 14, page 15, page 20, page 21, page 22. V. Terms, desired benefits of a solution, and frame for the work VI. Key findings from research VII. Process and work streams VII. Month-by-month progress IX. Data X references XI. Recommendations Appendix 1. Guiding Principles Contents, page 4 of 22. I Preface media reports are raising public awareness of the impact of school policies on student engagement. While safety is paramount in every school community, evidence shows that the efforts of urban school districts to educate all students to high levels of achievement are helped or hindered by policies and practices related to code of conduct. Communities across the nation are searching for approaches that promote safety, yet ensure schools are stimulating places that provide every student with opportunity and a pathway to success. In July 2012, Superintendent Dwight D. Jones called upon a group of district stakeholders to consider how changes in district policies and practices concerning discipline and special education placement can improve the prospects of academic success for every student. A group was assembled called the Superintendent's Educational Opportunities Advisory Council, SEOAC. Its charge was to study the matter and deliver recommendations within 6 months. The report that follows is a synopsis of results from the work of that SEOAC. This report identifies recommendations and provides insight into the process used to derive them. A byproduct of the SEOAC's work is the learning that emerged as well-intentioned people came together to address an issue of keen interest and importance. Members learn how much can be accomplished when the community unites to transparently confront an issue that impacts the life chances of many youth. Members learn how much is possible when a team refuses to let individual self-interest impede work. While differences in opinion were encouraged and disagreements arose, SEOAC took the challenges in stride. For instance, faced with data of questionable quality, SEOAC elected not to perseverate and delay its work. Instead, members took to heart the advice of one participant who urged, "We know enough to act." Granting that it would be helpful if better data were available, SEOAC accepted the data as is and shifted gears. SEOAC maintained momentum by asking questions such as, "So what?" and "Now what?" This resolve permitted the project to be completed on time. While this report makes available all the data used for this study, see Section X titled References. The report did not list every concern that was expressed during SEOAC meetings. That is to say, some issues were raised but were judged to be beyond the scope of SEOAC's charge. For example, issues that were raised include underrepresentation by race ethnicity within gifted and talented programs, how the district will ensure that professional development related to cultural competency is implemented according to plan, and whether quarterly monitoring and public reporting will include results published according to populations protected by federal law, that is, by race ethnicity, gender, special education, and English language learners. As well, observations offered by secondary principals in a focus group were passed along but were addressed by SEOAC only in a tangential way. Administrators noted that schools vary widely in how staff members implement discipline policies in the school. These principals further observed that while some latitude is needed, because schools face different kinds of challenges, the wide variation that exists is more than what is necessary. These observations are important, but only appear in a recommendation calling for professional development and cultural competency for new teachers and principals. SEOAC co-chairs, Dr. Robert L. Green and Dr. Andre Denson, extend thanks to the superintendent for convening the committee and to the board for its support. The co-chairs convey appreciation to staff who supported SEOAC, which includes Gay Johnson in the Academic Services Division and Joyce Pistone in the Office of the Superintendent. These staff members provided invaluable project management support. It also includes two former district teachers, Kristen Cragwall and Rashi Thompson, who are associated with Teach for America, who provide support with special projects to the special consultant to the superintendent. They assisted SEOAC in policy research and analysis. Finally, the co-chairs express their thanks to every SEOAC member for their dedication and commitment to this work. Page 5 of 22. 2. Executive Summary. This describes the proceedings and findings of a superintendent-appointed committee of 23 individuals that met from August 2, 2012, to January 10, 2013, to address one question. What changes in district policy, procedure, or structure will mitigate overrepresentation by gender, race, ethnicity, or disability in discipline-related actions and/or special education placement? Secondary schools were exclusively the focus of study. Recommendations that follow provide general direction and address philosophy, accountability, and training. 10 consensus recommendations follow. 1. Improve data quality. Data collection related to suspension and expulsion will be consistent, reliable, standard, across schools, annually available to the public, and will reflect the intent of SEOAC recommendations. 2. Reduce overrepresentation. Impose a moratorium on suspensions and expulsions except for the Big Five offenses, at the superintendent's discretion as to terms, with the caveat that student-on-student assault and battery that result in injury now fall under the Big Five heading. 3. Develop cultural competency. Mandatory professional development on cultural competency will be provided for all new teachers and new administrators. 4. Extend cultural competency. At every school each year, at least one professional development day will be devoted to cultural competency. 5. Gauge the benefit of professional development. Implement an evaluation procedure to identify the impact of professional development that is intended to promote cultural competency. 6. Refine what we mean by cultural competency. Articulate standards and expectations of professional responsibility related to cultural competency. 7. Provide early intervention. Restructure Title I to focus on early interventions with the most at-risk student population. 8. Enhance early literacy. Students in grades K-3 who are not yet proficient in literacy will receive appropriate interventions. 9. Provide better, earlier, and different alternatives to suspension and expulsion. During the moratorium period, investigate for possible implementation various models of tiered intervention disciplinary systems that include parent notification policies. For example, the Baltimore model. 10. Monitor progress. Appoint a CCSD administrator who is responsible for monitoring and publicly reporting, at least quarterly, the implementation of these recommendations. Section XI of this report includes a complete list of recommendations. It includes important clarification for recommendations 2 and 7. Page 6 of 22. 3. DESCRIPTIONNOFTHAGEANDSUCCESSCRIDERIA in July 2012, the superintendent of schools in the Clark County School District invited 23 individuals and 3 speakers or guests to convene to address the following charge. By January 30, 2013, present the superintendent with recommendations that are designed to mitigate and remedy overrepresentation by gender, race, ethnicity, or disability in discipline-related actions and/or special education placement. Success criteria. Reflect consensus of the SEOAC. Confirm to requirements of law, contract, and policy. Delivered on time by January 30, 2013. Under budget, and to specification. INCORPORATEACTIONSTHATIARECHIVELITHEXISTINGRESOURCES. Support schools in their efforts to ensure every student is ready by exit. ACHIVETHFECTOFFELIMINATION. Make sure claims that are made are defensible, valid for their purpose, and based on reliable information. Provide direction but leave to others responsibility for translating high-level recommendations into practice. Tammy Bass, Richard Boulware, Sean Boyle Drive, Kate Carl, Teresa Cooper Drive, Andre Denson, Reverend Raymond L. Gibbons, Dr. Robert L. Green, Frank Hawkins, April Key, Sylvia Lazos, Susie Lee, Levon Lewis, Lily Lynn, Steve Linder, Jose Melendrez, Leon Pearson Drive, Greta P. Lee, Quick Drive, Kenneth Turner, Brad Waldron, Yvette Williams, Kim Wooden. Invited speakers and guests: Dr. Gwen Marchant Drive, Tamara White Drive, Dan Rashley IV. Membership attorney, United Family Services and instructor, College of Southern Nevada Vice President, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People CCSD, Principal, Sierra Vista High School CCSD, Retired Administrator Parent Volunteer CCSD, Associate Superintendent and SEOAC, Co-Care Unity Baptist Church Dean and Professor Emeritus, Michigan State University, SEOAC Co-Chair President, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People CCSD, Principal, Cheyenne High School Professor of Law, University of Nevada, Las Vegas Board President, Communities and Schools of Nevada, Las Vegas Urban League, Parent Volunteer Businessman, University of Nevada, Las Vegas State Farm Insurance, CCSD, Equity and Diversity Education Department, Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority, CCSD, Superintendent's Representative, Special Assistant to the Superintendent, CCSD, Assistant Superintendent, Education Services Division Chair and Founder, Clark County Democratic Black Caucus, CCSD, Chief Student Services Officer, Student Support Services Division, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, CCSD, Grant Writer, Grants Development and Administration Department, Vanderbilt University, page 7 of 22. V terms, desired benefits of a solution, and frame for the work terms. This work will be referred to simply as overrepresentation or disproportionality or rates. The charge to SEOAC includes a reference to discipline-related actions. In this context, the term discipline-related actions means referrals for expulsions, as well as its precursors, in this case suspensions and referrals to alternative schools. African American is used throughout this report except in cases where a quotation is drawn from a publication that relies on another identifier. The identifier Black is commonly used in official documents provided by the U.S. Department of Education. Recommendations 3, 4, and 6 include a reference to cultural competency. In this context, the term cultural competency means the ability to understand, appreciate, and interact with persons from cultures and/or belief systems other than our own. Cultural competency entails knowledge, skills, dispositions, and expressions, such as what we know, do, believe, and respect about ourselves, others, and society. The aim of professional development in cultural competency is to create environments free from bias, prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination, and disenfranchisement. Cultural competency is demonstrated through thoughts, words, actions, and interactions. Training in cultural competency equips educators with a framework for making schools more welcoming, engaging, and rewarding for students. The intended outcome of professional development in cultural competency is mutual respect among all persons, that is, respect for others who differ from us. Objectives related to cultural competency include promote community by bridging differences in a way that does not sacrifice identity, understand how learning styles, values, and sensitivities vary, understand and identify how cultural boundaries impact learning, display attitudes and behaviors that reflect the belief that even those who are different can also be right. Objectives related to cultural competency and communication include facilitate productive cross-cultural dialogue by knowing when, how, and why to vary language, symbols, and stories. Interact productively on culturally sensitive issues in a way that surfaces biases and brings beliefs and practices into better alignment. Create learning environments where staff members seek valid information, make informed choices, and take responsibility for monitoring their effectiveness and the effectiveness of classrooms, programs, and schools. An objective related to cultural competency and curriculum, instruction, and assessment is differentiate content, materials, and conduct in order to optimize learning for students of various backgrounds. Page 8 of 22. Recommendation 2 includes a reference to the Big Five. In this context, the term Big Five refers to behaviors that warrant mandatory expulsion due to federal statute, Federal Gun-Free School Act of 1994, Nevada Law, NRS 392.466, or District Policy, R 5141.1. These include the following: arson, weapons, drug distribution, battery or assault on a staff member leading to harm, and inappropriate sexual relationship involving students. In addition to these requirements concerning mandatory expulsion, There are related laws and regulations and policies that pertain to mandatory suspensions. While it is the intent of SCOAC to use the Big Five to reduce the rate of suspension, it is also the intent of SCOAC to ensure that the district remains in compliance with existing laws, regulations, and policies. A variety of statistics are typically used to characterize disproportionality. Those terms are described here along with their advantages and limitations. A term that has been used in the past to characterize disproportionality is composition statistic or compositional ratio. The compositional ratio is 1.0 if a group constitutes 10% of the student population at large in a district and the same group also represents 10% of the expelled student population in the district. By comparison, the compositional ratio is 2.0 if a group constitutes 10% of the student population in the district and the same group represents 20% of the expelled population. Care should be taken when this term is used because this approach is no longer endorsed by the National Research Council. It was used by the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights until 2010-2011, when the Office for Civil Rights discontinued its use because a more accurate and descriptive term had emerged in the research literature. See below for discussion of relative risk. The National Research Council now discounts compositional ratio because compositional statistics are easily misunderstood and often distorted. Reachley, D. Analysis of CCSD discipline outcomes by gender, race, ethnicity, and disability, July 30, 2012, p. 9. Despite its limitations, compositional ratio statistics still appear on the website for the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. The information is no longer current because it is based on information schools provided for 2009-2010. Nonetheless, it provides an approximate way to compare expulsion rates across and within districts nationally. In the interest of fairness and accuracy, when presenting and interpreting comparisons of compositional ratios, it is vital to declare the limitations of this approach. For details, go to http://ccsd.net/internal/documents/items.php question category equals quantitative. Beginning in 2010, use of compositional ratio declined and the term relative risk gained prominence. This shift occurred because the term relative risk earned the endorsement of the National Research Council Panel on Disproportionality, see Donovan and Cross, Minority and Gifted Students in Special Education, 2002. In the context of the work of SCOAC, the notion of overrepresentation was most appropriately and reliably characterized by the term relative risk. Relative risk is computed by dividing the number of behavioral events, in this case expulsion, for a student group by the total population of the same group, called the result X. Then take the sum of the behavioral events for all other groups and divide it by the total population of all other student groups, called the result Y. The relative risk is derived by dividing X by Y. Relative risk of 1.0 indicates exact proportional representation. Relative risk of 2.0 means that students in a group are overrepresented at a rate that is twice that of students in all other groups. Reachley, D. Analysis of CCSD discipline outcomes by gender, race, ethnicity, and disability, July 30, 2012, p. 9. Recommendation 9 includes a reference to various models of tiered intervention disciplinary systems that include parent notification policies. For example, the Baltimore model. In this context, the term Baltimore model refers to a district system of student discipline and adult response that is characterized by the following features. Page 9 of 22. It divides staff response to student behavior into 4 levels. Levels correspond to the seriousness of the student offense, the degree or harm involved, and the impact on a school community. Lower levels, 1 or 2, concern less serious behaviors. Higher levels, 3 or 4, concern more serious offenses. Inappropriate student behaviors are classified according to levels. A particular student behavior is assigned a specific level of staff intervention and response. When responding to a specific inappropriate behavior, staff members make note of the level of expected response. Staff members apply a response that is associated with that level, or lower. For every level, there is an expectation that parents will receive information and prompt notification of inappropriate or disruptive behaviors by their students. For lower levels, this contact may occur via phone, email, or text. For more details, go to http://ccsd.net/internal/documents/items.php question category equals structural desired benefits of a solution. Advance accountability for students, staff, schools, and parents. Enhance the achievement and academic growth at all school sites. Promote access, equity, efficiency, and quality in educational programming. Enhance retention, that is, extend ownership of each school for the success and safety of each student. Increase site-based responsibility as it relates to programming and services for each and every student. Narrow gaps separating particular student subgroups with respect to academic achievement and growth. Promote continuous improvement, greater transparency, and public understanding of causes remedies. Work frame. The window for examining discipline-related outcomes extends from 2009-2010, concerning expulsion, and 2011-2012, concerning suspension and referral to alternative school. The window for examining special education representation extends from 2003-2012. Key findings from research. 2 studies on disproportionality within the Clark County School District were commissioned by the district and conducted by Vanderbilt University. Both culminated in reports that were made available to SCOAC members. One of the studies used data from 2003-2012 to analyze overrepresentation by gender, race, and ethnicity in rates of special education placement. The other study analyzed data from 2009-2010 and 2010-2011 and examined how discipline-related events varied by gender, race, ethnicity, and disability. The findings from these 2 studies provided SCOAC with the most definitive assessment of district performance in the 2 areas of focus. Discipline-related findings arising from the Vanderbilt report. The Vanderbilt study on discipline concluded that Black students were about 2.7 times more likely than other groups to be excluded, expelled by action of the school board. This translates into a relative risk of 2.7. By contrast, with respect to other racial ethnic groups, the Vanderbilt report showed that during the same time period, only one other group has a slightly elevated level of expulsion, relative risk of 1.1 for Hispanic students. This means that students in this group are 1.1 times more likely than other groups to be expelled. No other group had a level of relative risk that exceeded this. A relative risk of 1.0 means that there is no evidence of disproportionality. Reachley, D. Analysis of Clark County School District 2009-2010 and 2010-2011 discipline outcomes by gender, race, ethnicity, and disability, July 30, 2012, p. 43. With respect to suspension, within the same time period, the Vanderbilt study concluded that Black students were 2.2 more likely than other groups to be suspended. In other words, the relative risk for suspension for Black students was 2.2. By contrast, Hispanic students were 1.3 times more likely than other groups to be suspended. Secondarily, the study showed that a more fine-grained look at the data revealed that the likelihood of suspension in response to a page 10 of 22. Particular student behavior varies by race, ethnicity, and by gender. That is to say, different groups are more likely to be suspended for certain behaviors. Reachley, D. Analysis of Clark County School District 2009-2010 and 2010-2011 discipline outcomes by gender, race, ethnicity, and disability, July 30, 2012, p. 25. Cautionary note about discipline-related results. To clarify findings from the Reshley report in context, members of the SEOAC considered how other big city districts compare nationally with respect to expulsion rates for different racial and ethnic groups. When early evidence pointed to an overrepresentation of African American students in the expelled population, attempts were made to gauge the magnitude of the overrepresentation. With this purpose in mind, attention turned to sources of data that would provide the desired comparisons. A national website hosted by the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights provided one such source. The site included district-by-district and school-by-school data describing the demographic composition of the student population and also the expelled population. Information appearing on the website of the Office for Civil Rights represented both mandatory and discretionary expulsions. The information that was portrayed was used to generate compositional statistics. While statistics on compositional ratios are an outdated approach and been replaced by the more descriptive term of relative risk, compositional ratios were used in a preliminary way by SEOAC to gauge how the Clark County School District compared to districts of similar size and complexity. Analyses indicated that the compositional ratio of the Clark County School District, 2.5, exceeded the compositional ratios of Baltimore, 1.9, Miami-Dade, 1.8, Houston, 1.6, Dallas, 1.5, Boston, 1.4, Los Angeles, 1.4, and Philadelphia, 1.3. When considering these results, members noted that the data was of questionable validity. In part, this was due to questions about how districts count students who are expelled. In spite of this, SEOAC accepted the district-to-district comparisons of compositional ratios, treated the results as directionally correct, and found them useful to guide discussion about next steps.
Wow.
Special education-related findings arising from the Vanderbilt report. The report from the other Vanderbilt study focused on special education placement rates. The report begins with a description saying that the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs has historically avoided setting specific numerical standards for overrepresentation with respect to special education placement rates, but instead has traditionally left these decisions for each state to make. The report states that the question is what level of disproportionality should be identified as potentially problematic. The state of Nevada criterion for special education disproportionality is a relative risk that is greater than 3.0, similar to many other states, Albrecht et al. 2011. The criterion seemed excessively lenient, leading possibly to failure to identify discipline patterns that need further attention and analysis. Continuing, Reshley reported, the CCSD Division of Student Support Services has applied a relative risk criterion that is greater than 2.0 to identify potential disproportionality that should receive further attention and analysis. This means that a group has to be 2 or more times as likely to be in special education as other groups. This has been the approach taken by the district for the last 9 years. This standard is substantially more stringent than the significant disproportionality criterion established by the state of Nevada. Reshley, D. Analysis of Clark County School District 2009-2010 and 2010-2011 Discipline Outcomes by Gender, Race, Ethnicity, and Disability, July 30, 2012, p. 2, 6, 9, 10 by the standard 2.0. The Reshley report revealed a single occurrence where a student group was overrepresented. Black students were overrepresented in the disability categories of emotional disturbance. Reshley, D. Analysis of Clark County School District Special Education Representation 2003-2012, July 28, 2012, p. 2, 11. The relative risk for Black students is 2.7. At the same time, the report showed that while persistent overrepresentation of Black students in the emotional disturbance category occurred in all 9 years, it was largely attributable to racial ethnic imbalances in the overall population of students receiving special education services. Further, largely because the district has a sustained effort underway to implement a strategy called Response to Instruction or RTI. SEOAC members elected to devote greater attention to mitigating overrepresentation in discipline-related matters. Page 11 of 22. VII. Process and work streams. At the outset of this work, SEOAC participants were invited to reply to two questions. 1. If you could have what you want with respect to a solution for disproportionality, what would you have? 2. What beliefs should SEOAC consider as a philosophical guide for this work? With respect to question 1, SEOAC responses were compiled and placed in a table with 4 columns. Improvements that are within our prerogative. Improvements that are possible only with a change in district policy. Improvements that are possible only with a change in state law. Improvements that are possible only with a change in a collective bargaining agreement. A large majority of SEOAC member responses, total of 50, appeared in the first column, within our prerogative. A far smaller number, total of 4, appeared in the second column, possible only with a change in district policy. Fewer responses, total of 2, appeared in the third column, possible only with a change in state law. A single response appeared in the fourth column, possible only with a change in a collective bargaining agreement. This demonstrated to SEOAC membership how work of the committee could proceed relatively, though not completely, unhindered by laws or contracts. This realization helped SEOAC members think creatively about what was possible in terms of solutions. With respect to question 2, responses that SEOAC members submitted were arranged thematically. These were then translated into a statement of guiding principles. That statement appears as in Appendix 1 in this report. Page 12 of 22. Superintendent's Educational Opportunities Advisory Council, SEOAC, Work Streams. Thursday, August 2, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Framing the work, beliefs to guide action. Thursday, August 30, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Understanding the issue, data and information. Thursday, September 6, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Root cause analysis. Thursday, October 4, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Listing the options. Thursday, November 1, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Narrowing the possibilities. Thursday, December 6, 2012, 10 a.m., noon. Generating SEOAC recommendation. Thursday, January 10, 2013, 10 a.m., noon. Preparing to present SEOAC recommendation. What is our charge? What are our operating agreements? How do we reach agreement? What are our work streams? What do we mean by terms we use? What period of time is our focus? If we had what we wanted, read this issue, what would we have? After we lock down the most important recommendation, what other recommendations can we agree to offer? At what point in our deliberations does consensus begin to wane and we need to agree to wrap up our work? Is a meeting needed on January 10, 2013 to prepare for a presentation of the recommendation to Superintendent Jones and/or to the Board of Trustees? As we check the pulse of all our members, do we find that we still have a consensus around the most important elements of our recommendation? Do we all still agree to subordinate our self-interests so that we can achieve something as a team that no one of us can achieve alone? Do we all still agree to support what we helped create in this work? Page 13 of 22. What has helped eliminate variability in rates? How do CCSB rates compare to other districts of similar size and complexity that have higher academic performance? Broward, Houston, and Miami-Dade. Of those factors in our control that explain the variability in rates, which ones hold the greatest promise as possible remedies? What lessons can we learn from areas of success? What is the universe of possible options for solutions? In what areas and to what extent do SEOAC members agree are the most promising options? How many and which of the most promising options are related to or dependent on one another, and how many and which are independent of each other? If we were to place the options in a ranked order, from most to least promising, what would we find? When we consider the top-ranked option, what are the implications for policy, procedure, and/or practice? If we could only offer one structural recommendation, what would it be? In other words, what is the difference that makes the biggest difference? Historically, how have these rates been associated with gender, race, ethnicity, and/or disability? How, why, and to what extent do rates vary in CCSD? What explains why rates vary? How do rates change over time? Which factors that explain the variability in rates are in our control? August 2nd, 2012, August 30th, 2012, September 6th, 2012, October 4th, 2012, November 1st, 2012, December 6th, 2012, January 10th, 2013. SEOAC members agreed that to deliver on the charge, members must be flexible. That is, willing to subordinate self-interest so the team can accomplish what no individual can achieve alone. SEOAC members agree that to mitigate and remedy overrepresentation means annually reducing overrepresentation. SEOAC agreed with findings from the Vanderbilt studies. African American students, especially males, are overrepresented in expulsion. To a lesser extent, Hispanic students, especially males, are overrepresented in suspensions. To a lesser degree, African Americans are disproportionately overrepresented in special education placement related to behavior. SEOAC concluded that with respect to discipline-related matters, precursors of interest include suspensions. Going forward, SEOAC will focus attention chiefly on mitigating and remedying expulsions, suspensions, and referrals to alternative schools among African Americans, especially males. SEOAC identified a preliminary set of the most likely root causes of overrepresentation in discipline-related events. The set included A. Lack of early intervention, B. Lack of accountability by parties, C. Bias, D. Lack of positive interventions, E. Variability in execution of policy, F. Lack of basic skills, and G. Lack of basic support. Root causes were rank ordered: 1. Bias, 2. Lack of administrative awareness of disproportionality, 3. Unacceptably variable execution of procedures, 4. Lack of accountability on everyone's part, 5. Too much discretion, 6. Lack of care about conditions contributing to discipline, and 7. Lack of cultural competency. SEOAC identified solutions to root causes and then gauged its support for each solution. Solutions included: A. Address discretion via a moratorium on expulsions for all but the Big Five, but as student-on-student assault. B. Address bias via summer staff training, and C. Address lack of accountability by measuring teacher discipline referral. SEOAC identified solutions to additional root causes and gauged support for each solution. Solutions included: A. Address lack of cultural competency for all staff, B. Address early intervention for grades 4, 5, 7, and 8, and C. Address lack of understanding about conditions that may contribute to discipline-related events. SEOAC finalized 10 recommendations. All members indicated that they agreed to support each of the 10 recommendations. VIII Month BY Month Progress 7 SEOAC meetings were held between August 2nd, 2012, and January 10th, 2013. A thumbnail summary follows for each meeting. Page 14 of 22. IX. Data. This report includes a small subset of all data that SEOAC reviewed. Section X of this report describes the data elements that were reviewed by SEOAC members. Altogether, 90 separate documents were reviewed totaling 918 pages of text. Assembling data that permitted district-to-district and school-to-school comparisons proved to be challenging. Reasons for this include uncertainty about how other districts define, interpret, measure, and report expulsion, and uncertainty about the way in which data from our own schools travels from a school to the district to a national website such as the one hosted by the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, OCR. A cautionary note is included. Care should be used when reviewing data in the tables that appear immediately below or when citing or reporting the data or findings in this report. Tables that follow include data on expulsions that was drawn from the website of the OCR. Data on expulsion that appear are 3 years old, from the 2009-2010 academic year and are no longer being collected by the OCR. Figures that appear for expulsion are summarized in a compositional ratio. For reasons explained earlier in this report, see section IV on terms. Care should be taken when interpreting these findings because compositional statistics are easily misunderstood and often distorted. Reachley, D. Analysis of Clark County School District 2009-2010 and 2010-2011 Discipline Outcomes by Gender, Race, Ethnicity, and Disability, July 30, 2012, p. 9. Although the figures are out of date, the figures are presented here because they offer roughly comparable information on school-by-school expulsion rates. The information on expulsions that follows in the tables is limited in usefulness because the figures do not depict current conditions and because a more accurate descriptor, relative risk, is now available. Nevertheless, the data proved helpful to SEOAC because they provided a glimpse of district-to-district and school-to-school variability in expulsion rates. In addition to expulsion data, the tables that follow also display school-by-school rates of alternative school referrals and suspensions. The Clark County School District Education Services Division is the source of this data. The time period for this data, 2011-2012, differs from the time period for the expulsion data, 2009-2010. To aid in interpreting the information found in the tables that follow, a single column is found in each of the 3 panels. The column heading is Composition Ratio and provides a way to compare rates between and among schools. It also provides a way to compare expulsion rates to suspension rates and to the rates of referral to alternative schools. Page 15 of 22. Cadwalader 50.
I paused it a minute because going through the numbers is irrelevant, but I just want to know out there who was a part of this process. How did they actually develop the educational system here in Clark County? Because I don't see it as, I see them doing the same thing. So let me record the recommendations and I'm going to upload it and put it on my YouTube channel. I'll share it with my Facebook. But the responsibility to understand who should be overseeing and participating, it's you.
Sheep. Consensus recommendations appear sequentially in the order they were approved by SEOAC members. They are not arranged thematically, nor are they necessarily arranged by importance. Recommendations that appear enjoy the endorsement of all SEOAC members. All members agreed that they could live with and support the recommendations. 1. Improve data quality. Data collection related to suspension and expulsion will be consistent, reliable, standard, across schools, annually available to the public, and will reflect the intent of SEOAC recommendations. 2. Reduce overrepresentation. Impose a moratorium on suspensions and expulsions except for the Big 5 offenses, at the superintendent's discretion as to terms, with a caveat that student-on-student assault and battery that results in injury now fall under the Big 5 heading. Note: the word terms refers to how swiftly the moratorium is implemented. That is, will it be immediately imposed or will it be phased in, and if so, over what period of time? Phase-in will ensure the district complies with relevant discipline-related laws, regulations, and policies. 3. Develop cultural competency. Mandatory professional development on cultural competency will be provided for all new teachers and administrators. 4. Extend cultural competency. At every school each year, at least one professional development day will be devoted to cultural competency. 5. Gauge the benefit of professional development. Implement an evaluation procedure to identify the impact of professional development that is intended to promote cultural competency. 6. refine what we mean by cultural competency, articulate standards and expectations of professional responsibility related to cultural competency. 7. Provide early intervention. Restructure Title I to focus on early interventions with the most at-risk student population. Note, the term early intervention could refer to early in a school year or in any grade and not just the early grades. It is also plausible that the term early intervention could refer to the introduction or development of an early warning system. Such a system would identify behaviors that research shows could lead to suspensions, expulsions, and/or behavioral school placement if not corrected. 8. Enhance early literacy. Students in grades K-3 who are not yet proficient in literacy will receive appropriate interventions. 9. Provide better, earlier, and different alternatives to suspension and expulsion. During the moratorium period, investigate for possible implementation various models of tiered intervention disciplinary systems that include parent notification policies. For example, the Baltimore model. 10. Monitor progress. Appoint a CCSD administrator who is responsible for monitoring and publicly reporting, at least quarterly, the implementation of these recommendations. Page 21 of 22, Appendix 1. Guiding Principles. Guiding Principles. What should guide this work? Mission. There is an overarching goal: prepare all students so they are ready by exit. Accountability. Clearly identify who is responsible to whom and for what. Sustainable change. Durable change is the result when actions match words. Equity. Others are treated with fairness. Bias, prejudice, stereotype, and favoritism are mitigated and eliminated. Human capital. Attention is given to recruitment, selection, development, and retention of staff. Partnership. Collaboration is evident. Power with is more effective than power over. Safety and respect. Mutual regard and concern for the welfare of others are paramount. Research claims that are made are credible, defensible, and evidence-based.
Wow, that was in 2012, and we are in 2021. And the reality of public education and our inability to question the public services, nothing has changed. And it's so very frustrating. I just want to know which one of the community members worked on this process. As you know, this was certainly a process that, said that they were going to support community and engage in change. But I can't say I saw any change, no change at all. So let's begin again. Find people in your community that understand what I'm talking about, because we need to talk about this restrictive placement for our children and how it's affecting the Black community. The Black people need to talk about that. And that's just real, especially since they have this new legislation up there, AB 57 and AB 67. And then, Nevada has 5 different types of diploma. So even though you can not going to graduate, you can just get the certificate just by applying. Not sure of the whatever, but you ain't reaching grade level. So they give you this finished certificate. But under Obama, you also had a right to have some vocational rehabilitation because you didn't reach grade level proficiency. And that little thing you got hanging around you is just like, my. It's just like a piece of paper with no value, because you can't go into the military with a certificate of completion. You can't get a state job with a certificate of completion. And when you go to the JC, you're going to find out exactly where you are in regards to your educational accomplishments. So don't be sad when you go over there, because they're not collecting any of the data where you've been for the last 12 years. And somehow it's not been a conversation of my people. So it's unfortunate, but it's a must to begin to understand that a certificate of completion, just that, allows the district to move forward and allows you to move forward with a more lucrative offer of service, which would mean a vocational training program. And automatically you qualify because you didn't graduate at grade level. Somebody helped me with this concept because they didn't do that here in Nevada. They didn't follow any ESSA. Well, maybe they put one or two through my brother's keeper, but honey, the data from my brother's keeper. I wonder who's collecting the data for the curriculum and support that's being provided to those children in the Harbor program, because I don't believe there is any support. But it's just an assumption, especially when people decide that you're irrelevant and they're not going to talk to you. So if you've stumbled upon this podcast, please contact your local official that would be over the Department of Education, or the closest thing I can say is the governor, and ask them how come there's such a disproportionality in public education and access to public services for the community of the people who look like you, because you still paying taxes. And my one voice is not going to do it. And it's unfortunate that we have organizations that are less powerful here because of their inability to build capacity. But individually, if we start stepping up our game, we can make a difference. This has to change. And we need to deal with this as it's been going on. God, they said 10 years prior to this. So that's why I said, I know education just has not, there is no foundation, especially when I looked at the bill, AB, what was it? I've got to pause for a second. Pause. Okay. Now I just want to read this little first paragraph right here, because, the computer won't read this as a temporary file, but it's the file they're getting ready to work on. Let's see. This is AB, what is it? My goodness, I thought it was AB 67. This is the text for AB 67. There it is right there. You see the date, November 18th, 2020. Now, this is what they approved in November. An act relating to education, revising provisions relating to suspension, expulsion, or permanent expulsion of a pupil from public school, charter school, or university for profoundly gifted pupils in certain circumstances, providing that certain hearings and proceedings relating to suspending or expelling, permanently expelling, are not open to meeting laws. Open meeting laws, well, whatever. But then it just goes in here to talk about what the law actually allows. So existing Nevada law authorizes pupils to be suspended or expelled from public school in certain circumstances, and two, provides that the pupil who is not more than 10 years old, 10 years of age, must not be permanently expelled, oh my goodness, from public school. Now, what did that mean? Irregardless, can't even think about it. I don't care what age we're talking about here. Accessible. The district has an obligation to educate your child, whether they be in their public setting or in an isolated setting, but that's more secure or whatever. Obligation never goes away. Existing law requires a pupil to be expelled permanently. Expelled if the pupil is found with a firearm or dangerous weapon at a public school, at a public school sponsored activity, or a public school bus. An existing law imposes similar requirements to a charter school and university for profoundly gifted. But this bill defines expel permanently, suspend respectively, for the purpose of school discipline. Then it's got these sections 6, 8, and 23 and 24 of this bill is revised for the circumstances in which a pupil may be suspended or expelled. Permanently expelled. You see that? Existing law authorizes a pupil in participating programs of special education to be suspended or expelled. Certain circumstances or whatever, instead of authorizing a pupil with a disability to be suspended or expelled, permanently expelled. in certain circumstances. Well, Section 14 of this bill defines the people with a disability and conforming the changes relating to the terms defined in Section 12 and 15. But existing law provides that a pupil may be deemed an habitual disciplinary problem. Oh, Lord. If the pupil has received 5 suspensions in one school year and has not entered into it or participated in a behavior plan. Well, what the hell is a behavior plan? Okay, well, wait. I don't want to get lost here. And this section of this bill eliminates the requirement that the pupil be deemed suspended from a school if the pupil is prohibited from attending a school for 3 or more consecutive days. Conference or communication with the parents and guardians is required before a pupil may return. Okay, of this bill instead requires that only the significant suspensions be considered to determine whether the pupil is deemed habitual, truant, or just whatever. I mean, does this sound like support to you? It definitely doesn't sound like support to me. And actually, when I started reading and reading more, it became very, very stressful because public education is about a right to learn, a right to thrive, and not to be documented as a dysfunctional human being or a habitual disciplinary problem when there's no evidence of the maintenance, no evidence that was ever provided that demonstrated that you even had an opportunity to participate. Oh, my. Stress is real, but it's almost unbelievable that in 2021, a child, 10 or whatever age, can be permanently expelled from the only offer of a sustainable life is public education. So if y'all can, like I said, commit to reading this bill, truly, and there's another bill. This is 67. And then there's, of course, AB 57 that has something in there about how the teachers are not going to hold themselves accountable to document any support that they're providing to the children in the poverty places, because that's where they don't have it. Oh my gosh. Anyways, until we meet again, I'll say like, subscribe, and follow me on Anchor, on YouTube, on Facebook. Get some of that old stuff and start learning. Because when we look at who we're looking at for the responsibility, we need to understand it's just us.